Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to today's Peer Up session. Let's see. Peer Up is a student-led initiative which connects students with alumni and professionals to have meaningful discussions that address real high school experiences and challenges. Just a few guidelines. Please stay on mute and keep your video off to help minimize distractions. Maintain respectful communication in the chat, and questions are highly encouraged in the chat box at any time. The session will be recorded and shared on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is peer-up.org, and you can also find recordings on our website, peer-up.org. Um, so In a quick intro for today's speaker, Ayan Gupta. He will talk about what it truly means to build a successful future beyond just academics. He'll share insights on planning life after college, finding purpose, and developing the mindset and skills needed for long-term success in the real world. Thank you. Off to you, Ayan.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me now. Thank you, Rasika and Ritesh. And thank you for having me. This is a topic that's really dear to me because I myself am not, so old where I've forgotten about my high school. A bit about me is I just graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in computer science. I graduated from Tesla STEM High School in 2020. So now it's been about 5 years, but 9 years ago I started high school. And I truly resonate with this topic because I myself wasn't so sure what it meant to be successful when I was going through high school. Because there's just so much that the world throws at you in terms of what does it mean to be successful that it becomes hard to create your own rendition of what it actually means to you. So before we dive any further, I'll start by saying I know that many of you are trying to aim high. Maybe Stanford is on the list, maybe Harvard or even UW to some extent. It's getting harder and harder to get into UW. And those of you who are in Washington State, we unfortunately live in a state where we don't have very many good college options. California and Texas, they are very, let's say, well endowed with many options. So that is oftentimes what success looks like for a high school student. But what is after college? How many of you would know what's after college? And maybe we can use some of like the emojis or reactions, just to make it a little bit interactive. Um, how many of you have had a chance to think about what's after college? You can use like the check mark for yes or the little cross for no. Okay, no worries. But typically what happens is for most students, what is after college is not a huge consideration because what you are taught in high school, what you are taught in middle school, what everybody else around you is doing is worrying about how can I get into the best college possible, which is a very valid concern because there is a correlation between what college you go to and your success in the future. But that is oftentimes, in my experience, something that is not so beneficial. And one thing I forgot to perhaps include in my introduction is I've also been doing college counseling for the past 3 to 4 years. So I've talked with hundreds of families, hundreds of students, um, and it's given me a lot of perspective just sitting in from an outside perspective on what's going on inside families, what's going on inside students' heads, and I'm able to cross-reference that with my own mind and what was going on in my life when I was a high schooler. So yes, going to a great college can make you successful, but the thing is that it doesn't guarantee success. And that is where perhaps this starts going against the status quo that going to a good college, going to a great college, going to an amazing college doesn't guarantee success. And you may often not see it because colleges do a good job of understanding and admitting students who they know will be successful after graduating from their institution. And that is because colleges know that going to their specific college or going to any college for that matter never guarantees success. Colleges provide you the tools to be successful, but they don't hand you success on a platter, let alone they don't tell you the definition of success because success can mean different things. So, what does it mean to be successful then? And then how can you be successful going to an excellent college, or how can you be successful regardless of what college you go to? And that is the topic that I wanted to dive a little bit more into. And I'll start with some anecdotes. I have a few friends actually, who I grew up with, who went to Tesla STEM with me. Some of them went to some really excellent colleges. Georgia Tech is a great school, or even like Stanford, but they are still struggling to find jobs or settle into their careers or figure out what's next. The Georgia Tech one I find quite interesting because Georgia Tech is known to hand you like internships on a gold platter. That's a saying that I've heard quite often, that internships are handed to students on a gold platter. They have one of the biggest career fairs that colleges have in North America. So how is it possible that anybody could be struggling to be successful or get their life set in a school like Georgia Tech or even Stanford for that matter? Of course, the tech industry or the world can be to blame to some extent, that, oh, there's not so many jobs right now, or et cetera, et cetera. But that is the nature of this world where it's ever changing. We unfortunately can't control that. But you will find that there are certain things which are common among students who are successful beyond college versus not so successful beyond college, or rather they struggle. We live in a world where everybody has to find success eventually because you can't really live in the world without it. But for some it comes easier. What you will see often with those students who are able to find success is they're able to see what success means beyond just the college hoodie you're wearing on college admissions day. I know that when I was in high school, that was a huge factor. Like, what hoodie will I be wearing on college decision day in my senior year? But those who are successful often have higher purpose, that, oh, I really want to make this change in the world, or I'm really passionate about this specific thing. This is what motivates me. This is what drives me. This is what really makes me tick, to the point where I'm always thinking about this problem, or I'm always thinking about this activity, or this thing in the world that inspires me. And that's the paradigm shift nowadays. A lot of time I'll meet students who live for the purpose of getting into a good college. So it's like, okay, from 9 to 6 p.m., 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., I'm going to do school. I'm going to do homework. From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., I'm going to do this extracurricular activity. From 8 p.m. to 8:45 p.m., I'm going to perhaps play some video games. And it's a very structured life, which is great, but it's it's procedural. Nothing in life is ever a procedure. Those who are successful are able to find the things that make life so interesting that, had they if they had infinite time, they would always be thinking about or working on this one particular project or this one particular problem. So that is one of the main differences I see. And I think this is one of the commonly missed aspects of why you're in high school. You are in high school to figure out what drives you. What is the aspect of life that will keep you motivated to keep working for the next 40 years? It's hard to work for 40 years and not have a purpose or a passion behind what you're working on. And that brings me to the point of, why are you in high school? you're you're not in high school just to get into a good college, but you're in high school to develop these skills that will make you successful regardless where you go. There was a study done a few years ago by the Department of Education, and they said that not 60 years, 10 years from now, 60% of the jobs that students will be doing are jobs that no one would have even thought of before. They're jobs that do not exist today. So we are always learning, and high school is a place where you have to develop skills to be prepared for always learning and be prepared for jobs of the future, be prepared for what the future has to hold. And one final thought that I'll uh, put in is you will often see students who get into really good colleges, um, whatever the definition of really good college is, but students who get into, let's say, top 20, top 30, top 5, top 10 colleges, you will see that, oh, yeah, they had great grades. Perhaps their essays were really good. But the main differentiator is their extracurriculars. And is it their extracurricular simply because of it being an extracurricular? Or is there more to it? You'll find that the extracurriculars that these students do are often not 9 to 5 extracurriculars. And what I mean by 9 to 5 extracurriculars is that they're not extracurriculars which they were doing for just a few hours a day or a few hours a week, but it's something that they embodied. It's something that they were so passionate about that outside of school, this was the one thing or the two things that really drove them to achieve really cool things in that area. There will be a really strong correlation between achieving really cool things and how passionate you are about them. Because if you're passionate about it, then you will have that drive and motivation to always be achieving more, to always be thinking about it. And it's not work, it's fun. So I'll end with that thought in terms of high school, some of my own personal reflections, what I've seen other students struggling with in terms of being in high school. And I hope this monologue of sorts hopefully gives some food for thought in terms of why am I in high school, or for parents, why is my kid in high school? And we can go into some questions that Rasika and Ritesh have, and then perhaps also from the audience.
If for now we can see one question from the chat, which is just what is the definition of success?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that back up. Yeah, because definitely we touched on a lot of topics, and the aspect about definition of success or the complexity is that it's not something that's so easily defined. It's a very personal measure. We live in a world where success can oftentimes be imposed upon us in the sense that this is what success should look like. Um, a personal story is when I was in high school, I was told so many times that, oh, you will get into MIT, you will get into Stanford, et cetera, et cetera. And when I did not get into these schools, I was very sad, very depressed, and my self-esteem was at an all-time low because the definition of success had been imposed onto me that for me to be successful, all these things that other people said about me have to be true. Otherwise, I'm not being successful. So, but at the end of the day, success has to come from within. For some people, success is truly, oh, I went to an Ivy League and I work at a big tech job, or I work as a big doctor and I'm earning a bunch of money, which is great. That can be a definition of success. Or another definition of success can be, I have a lot of things outside of this world which I'm passionate about, or there's social work I want to do, but I also realize that I need to sustain myself in this world. So my job and what I define as success may not be the same thing, but I know this is my responsibility and I know this is what I'm excited about. And therefore, when I combine the two in the time I have, in 24 hours I have each day, I'm able to be successful. So it's a really good question. And for most high schoolers, there is not a there's not a concrete answer or a well-developed answer of what it means to be successful, because I find most people develop their definition of success after college, because that's when you are a little bit more separated from your peer group and you have time for that introspection and you're not being so influenced by what everybody is telling you success is. So I hope that helps. I know it's a bit of a non-answer, but I truly believe there's no good singular definition of success I can give.
Yeah, we have another question from the chat box again, which is how to develop a passion, and is it something that sparks at a certain moment?
Yeah, that's also a great question. I would say that's one of the purposes of middle school and high school is you have to find what you're passionate about. What is it that makes you excited to learn or explore a space? And it can sometimes be not in line with what you want to study. So many times I've seen students who are like, oh, I want to go into pre-law, but I also really love art, and art is their passion. So art is the thing that will really make you feel happy and successful in life. And success hopefully also makes you happy. I would hope that that's not the case, where success and happiness are two different things. So I would say finding passion is it's a personal journey of exploring what is in the world that inspires you. And high school is a time to explore a lot of different cultures, places, things, problems, societies, and you will find what sticks. And one more thing is, I think being bored is a really good way to spark passion or interest. Being bored inspires creativity. If every time you're bored, you go onto social media, you scroll, you'll never have time to develop a passion because you're always engaging yourself in something that you think is passion, which perhaps gives similar rewards and doses of dopamine, but it's not actually contributing to understand what is it in this world that really drives you.
Okay, I think for now we still have some questions in the chat, but before we go to those, we have some questions that we've already been given, and so we'll do those, and we'll go back to the questions in the chat. And so the first one of those is that why is it that so many high achieving students, even after graduating from the best colleges, still feel lost or struggle to find their truth path? Why is it that essential eternal compass that grades don't measure? And how can students start building it now so they don't feel aimless later?
Mm. Yeah, I think it really comes down to at least getting in high school. Not everybody's able to do it in terms of defining what success is, but having this idea that success for me is not just getting into a great college, I think is really important, because I see probably high schoolers work harder than anybody else, especially in this area, in the East Side. They work harder than anybody else I've ever seen. It's so stressful, and most high schoolers are working for the singular goal of, I want to vie for my best chance of getting into this specific college or this program or this university. And not having future vision causes them to burn out. They get really happy, they get into their college of their dreams perhaps, but they work so hard for something that they achieve that it's no longer rewarding. Just yesterday, there was an event in Seattle that I was doing, and we were talking about, is it reaching the point of success which is enjoyable, or is it chasing success which is enjoyable or keeps people motivated? And we essentially concluded that it was the chasing part which makes it which engages everybody. But this chasing part and always pushing the definition of success to the next thing, to the next thing, and not having a higher principle of what it means to be successful makes it difficult to, like you said in your question, find a true path. Because in the future, we'll all have roles and responsibilities in society that are beyond just getting promotions or getting into certain things or winning awards or rewards, all of those things. So that higher compass is really important. Like I said, in high school, it's really hard to develop it 100%, but being aware that there's more to life than college and even a job, I think makes it a lot easier to be rooted in some sort of ground reality, where you're able to find what is my balance of academics, extracurriculars, not getting burnt out, and finding where I will be successful in my definition.
Thank you. That was really insightful. The next question is, how do we explain the disconnect where a student has great grades and impressive internships, but they still struggle to find a fulfilling career? How can students identify paths that align with their interests and values?
Hmm. So I will say that there's two parts to this. One is there's just different types of people. Some people are very book smart, good grades come easy to them. They're very academic. They're able to do well in that way. And then there's people who are more street smart. I would say I kind of fell more into that category where maybe good grades didn't come so easily to me, but I really loved doing things practically. And then there's everybody in between. There's not a black and white, I'm book smart, I'm street smart. There's a whole range of people. Um, and depending on where you are in that scale, it can either be harder to have good grades or it can be harder to find opportunities or careers. So like for instance, my friend at Georgia Tech, he's a perfect 4.0 student, but he struggled to land internships and get a job because the skills needed for an internship and to get a job don't just lie in can you solve coding problems, can you be an encyclopedia. It it's it lies in being a human. We are humans after all, we're not yet AI bots. So when you're giving an interview, when you're talking with people, you have to be an interesting person, you have to be able to tell engaging stories, you have to be memorable. All of these things matter a lot when giving interviews, and arguably I would say when giving interviews, or when even being in the real world, not even giving interviews, but when just networking or interacting with society, interacting with friends, being a good human being, being an interesting human being is a big part of it. So I would say, at least between this disconnect of grades and finding opportunities in the real world, we're all in a different place on this spectrum. And we have to find the balance that allows us to take advantage of both worlds. Unless, for instance, if some people are really good at academics and they go into academia, that's great. Like that's perfect, you know, fit for you. But that's often not going to be the case. So then the second part of the question was, how can students identify paths that align with their interest? Again, it comes down to two realities in the world. You will find people who truly are able to find career paths that are 100% in alignment with what they find really interesting and what they're passionate about. Or the second is you find a career path which you find interesting, but you may not be so passionate about, but it empowers you to do what you're passionate about. Um, and someday in the future, maybe what you're passionate about becomes your full-time, endeavor, because we unfortunately live in a world where we also have duties and responsibilities, and we have to see what it means. I was doing college counseling for uh, a student a few months ago, and their parents are really well to do. They come from a well established background, but their daughter wanted to go into journalism. So we were having a really um, straightforward discussion, essentially, of what does this mean for your life ahead? Because not every job will pay the same. Not every job will afford you the same lifestyle. So we were talking about the life she has now and the life that she would potentially have if she goes into a different career. And again, it comes down to this definition of success. Does success mean having a big house and a nice fancy Ferrari? Or does it mean just being satisfied and happy with what you're doing because you feel like it's what inspires you and what drives you in the world? So we had this discussion, and she essentially concluded that, yeah, big house and all these things, it's not so important to her. But what really was important to her was doing this one thing that really makes her happy, that she felt like was her calling in the world. So again, there's two answers to it. Uh, Sometimes they don't 100% align, and sometimes to get them to align, you have to sacrifice other things in your life. And again, as a high schooler, not expected to have an answer to it, but it's something good to chew on a little bit, to have in the back of your mind. It helps broaden the world perspective a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for that. I thought it was really interesting how you talked about being a more interesting just human being in general and how to really take advantage. And the next question we have is, what's something you wish you had known before graduating college, whether it's about life or planning or like just career options that could have helped you navigate the post-college more smooth?
We can't control everything, I would say. The job I'm in now, the opportunities I got, I would say, it was a tough learning because in high school we were taught that we are in control and we can control outcomes, but in life that is not the case so much. Especially, if you're trying to get a job, you can feel like, oh, I'm the best in the world at this. Why am I not getting any interviews? Why am I not getting any job opportunities? But I think that was one of the biggest learnings for me, is that I can only control the endeavor, but the outcomes from that endeavor are not 100% in my hands. I can always put in my best effort, but if I'm attached to a result of that effort, it ultimately impacts me mentally more than helping me reach my eventual goals.
Thank you. The next question is, what do you think truly determines whether someone builds a meaningful life after college, beyond obviously getting a good job or a high salary? Are there certain habits or choices or experiences that students should focus on now to set themselves up for the future?
Mm. I would say some of the best learnings in high school come through extracurriculars. Academics teach you about perseverance, having good study skills, but your extracurriculars are where you learn real life skills of how do you work with people who have different opinions or thoughts or ways of living than you. How do you influence people without becoming a negative influence or becoming someone that people dislike. Even something as simple like, how do you send emails to people, how do you text people, how do you talk to them? I think they are all important considerations when you're in high school. And I think I'm going a bit off the rails. Can you remind me a little bit more about your question? Sorry.
It was, what do you think truly determines whether someone builds a meaningful life after college,
Hmm,
beyond a good job and a high salary?
got it. Yeah. So hopefully it is, are you happy? And I think that is the one question in life that everybody should ask. Hopefully once a week, am I happy? And if I'm not happy, why am I not happy? Again, we can't, I can't be like, oh, I'm not happy. What would make me happy? Playing video games all day. Like, I mean, you can't do that. We all have a sense of duty and responsibility in this world, but if we have to look at life from an overarching perspective, that we're all here for 60, 70, 80, 90, maybe 100 years. What is it in this life that will make me happy? And like you said, it's not always something that comes from a high salary, but there are certain standards of living which are necessary. We have to have food on our plate, we have to have shelter, we have to be able to support a family or whoever we're living with. Those are the basic necessities. But after that, happiness can have different meaning. Um, so I would say that is the one thing that hopefully you ask yourself is, am I happy? And that is the definition of success. You'll see, um, there's so many people who earn quite literally a bazillion dollars. Okay, fine, maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but you earn millions of dollars. And America teaches you that you work for 30, 40 years and you work really hard, you earn good money, and then you retire and you spend it all. But at that point, you've spent most of your life just working for something that you don't even know if you'll get to spend. Um, so it should be something that you always ask yourself, am I happy? And if I'm not happy, why am I not happy? And how can I redirect my life and my attention such that it's easier for me to be happy in this world? Because we live in a world where there's so many things pulling at us from all directions. Some people get negatively impacted by politics or wars or other things going on in the world. Some people get impacted by relationships with friends or even relationships with their parents. Some people just get impacted by their own uh, mind. So we live in a difficult place, but I think having that North Star of, am I happy or not, is the biggest question anybody should ask.
Yeah, thank you, Ayan. The way you talk about really just having that guiding direction, that North Star, as you just said, I think that's really, really something to take away there. And when it comes to, we've talked about this earlier in the session. When it comes to something like success and the mindset, and you've been talking about how success isn't like a single definition, and grades are only part of success. With that considered, how can people like avoid tying their success only to like getting into a good college or career achievements? And
Mhm.
how can students build confidence when they face setbacks from their sort of definition of success?
I think it's the realization that life is not a game of life. It's not a binary thing where it's like if this happens then that will happen and only if this happens then that will happen. It's complicated, and more so being in America, I think life always here has many opportunities. I sometimes talk with students who struggled academically, and of course, they had ambitions to get into a top 20, a top 30, or even a top 40 college, but given their academic record, it would be difficult for them to do so. But it, America is not so much like India or Asia or China, where the college you go to 100% defines. I mean, even in those countries it's not 100% defined by what college you go to, but in those countries the college you go to determines a lot more about certain steps that you're able to take after college. But in America that's not so much the case. You'll find many people who are successful who went to community college for 2 years, then they transferred to like a main brand university, and they work the same jobs that people from MIT, Stanford, Harvard, John Hopkins work. um so you'll again have to remind me what the second part of the question. But I think that's the first part of it, which is understanding that it's very easy to feel like, oh, I'm screwed if something doesn't go your way or if something doesn't go according to plan. But life is not a binary tree.
Yeah, I mean, you've answered a little bit of the second part. The second part was basically how can students still build confidence when they face setbacks from trying to
Mm,
achieve their own definition of success?
got it. I think most difficult part is defining what is success to you, because oftentimes the definition of success ends up being keeping a 4.0, keeping a 3.8, keeping a high GPA. And even in college, that some people are so obsessed with that definition of success is they will work rigorously to keep a 4.0, but then that leaves them no time to do extracurriculars or even apply to jobs or learn the real life skills necessary. Everybody's trying to create a space for themselves in the world. And what we have to do is we have to identify what is my contribution to the world. What am I good at that I bring to the table? And it's not academics for everybody. It's not, oh, I have a 4.0 for everybody. For some people, it's I'm a really good artist, and that is what drives me, and that is what I have to bring to the world. So even though there might be other people with a higher grade than me, or there's some people who are doing this cool thing or that cool thing, this art thing is my home. This is where I feel like I'm happy, I'm able to shine, because we can't be good at everything. I mean, everybody has certain talents, skills, um, God given abilities, which make them who they are. So I think the answer to the second part of the question, it automatically gets resolved when you identify what is it about you which makes you who you are and and is what you will contribute to the world.
Thank you so much, Ayan. It was really interesting to know that which college you go to does not fully determine your path in life. I think we can go and look at some questions in the chat. Um, Somebody was asking if you were familiar with it. Does this picture of Ikigai resonate with you? So to be successful later on, what would you advise to focus on in high school?
What would you advise on to focus in high school? I would definitely say extracurriculars are a big part of it. Like I touched on a bit earlier before, your grades and academics teach you a certain skill set, but the skill set that you need to be successful in life oftentimes come from extracurriculars. And they and the level to which those skills develop from extracurriculars determines on how what is the intention for doing that extracurricular. For many students, the intention is out of it's like a transactional intention that if I do this, I think my chances of getting into college are 2x better. So therefore I'm going to do this. But if you do something which, and again, this is my opinion, you will find people with different opinions. But my opinion is that if you do something which you naturally have an inclination towards, that you naturally find interesting, there is a lot more learning involved in it because you will always be thinking about that activity. It'll always be running in your mind. Um, and therefore it'll take you in different directions. And I'll give a example. Some people, let's say, really love robotics, whereas some people do robotics for the sake of doing robotics. I was one of those people who really loved robotics. Like I loved working with my hands, making things, thinking about how to solve things. And randomly, I would wake up one day and be like, oh, we can do this instead of that. We can make this scissor lift and we can make it like this and 3D print this part, which would solve this problem. And therefore, it'll help us achieve this functionality. And now all of a sudden, I've set myself out on a path to do more learning. Perhaps it's like, oh, I need to now learn how to 3D print, or I need to now go to Home Depot and get all these different tools and supplies to build this thing which I have in my head, and I need to get it out into the world. Whereas someone who does robotics for the sake of doing robotics, they'll go to a robotics meeting for 2 hours. They'll kind of do what is asked of them, what is told of them, and that's the end of it. So hopefully this example illustrates the difference in thinking. When you're truly excited about it, it'll reveal other opportunities that allow you to learn, but not just allow you to learn, but that you are driven to learn about. If someone says learn 3D printing, 9 out of 10 times you won't learn 3D printing unless you have a good reason to learn it. So if you can find that good reason to learn, which is your personal passion or excitement, um, it makes it a lot easier to develop the skills you need to be successful in life. And the skills you need to be successful in life is the ability to learn new skills quickly.
Just as a follow-up question to that, so to be successful later on, what would you advise to focus on in high school? I think you kind of covered this a little bit.
Yeah. Um, I would say same thing, like, focusing on, of course, academics are important, but not giving, if you have 100% of your intention, not giving 100% to academics, but deciding what is the balance for me. It might be, okay, 60% of my attention in the day goes to academics, 30% goes to these extracurriculars, 10% goes to playing the piano because I really love to play it and it just reduces all my stress. So it's about not just being focused on academics, but being a person who has multiple facets, elements to them, and most importantly, spending time outside of school on things which give you space to learn skills which can empower you to be successful. And I'll go back to the email example. I spent a lot of time in high school learning from my parents how to send a good email because I learned in life that people do not read emails or they don't read long messages. So I learned from my parents, okay, this is how you write an email. You should bold certain parts of the email message, get rid of parts which are like too much information, which doesn't apply to them, even though you think it's helpful. Like, trust me, like I spent a year learning how to write emails to adults. Like it's crazy, but it's such an important skill. So I would say getting your hands dirty in the real world.
Yeah, thank you, Ayan. I think I think the way you talk about really just getting that real world experience is going to be very helpful. And our next question from the chat is I mean, it's kind of a story a little bit. I have a friend who is passionate about woodworking, but his parents don't want him to pursue that since they're worried that he may not be able to sustain himself. He is so passionate about it that he is willing to give up some standard of living for it. Um, doesn't really have a question, but maybe it's asking like, should he go for it? How does he decide whether he should do it? Something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's really a conversation to have within the family, right? Because we don't live in an idealistic world. We live in a world of duties and responsibilities. And depending on where you're coming from, you have to, as students, you have to find that intersection with your parents of how do I balance my duty and responsibility versus my choice of career or what I pursue. And kind of like how I touched on a little earlier, there's two options. One is like from the get-go, you find an intersection of your career and passion, which which is your happy place. Or the second option, which I would say majority of society follows, is you find a career that interests you and then that allows you to support your passion. For instance, uh, I have a family friend. He loves to just tinker and make things, like make drones, make random robots and whatnot. But that's expensive to do. So at the same time, you have to have a job that allows you to pay the bills for that interest. So I would say those are the two ways of thinking about it. Outside of that, it's a family discussion to some extent.
Thank you. I think it's really important to keep in mind the balance between passion and interests, like you were talking about. Another question from the chat says, you mentioned you did college counseling. Do you have any tips on extracurricular activities to pursue?
So I would say that's the question needs to switch. And I know like from Asian backgrounds especially, it, we're used to academics being procedural based, right? Because back in India, like it's very set forward that the way to success is you do these things specifically, you get into a good college, and that will give you a grounding for success. But I would say in America, Europe, some of these other worlds, that is not the case because the way hiring is done, the way they look at you as a person is a lot different. So in terms of tips on extracurricular activities to pursue, I would pursue the extracurricular activities that you as a student are excited about. And it goes back to that example I gave in like robotics. There's a difference in doing robotics for 2 hours a day versus doing it for 2 hours a day. And then also being so excited that you're always thinking about it in the back of your mind. So, and as a result of doing something you're interested in, you will come across accomplishments and results which you wouldn't have expected. Some people go with the result in mind that, oh, I want to paint a big art mural and then I want it to be published in the local newspaper and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want to win this award for it. Oftentimes you'll find that that is not how life works and that is not the result you will get, and you will be disappointed when you don't get the result. But if you say, I'm really excited about art and I just love painting things, and I'm going to put a message in a Facebook group saying that I'm a local student who loves to do art and I'm looking to paint some murals, um, it, it'll take you in directions you wouldn't expect, and it'll give you opportunities you didn't expect, and it'll give you results you didn't expect, which help you be successful.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ian. And the next question is a CS major still wise to go into, maybe with like the AI
Mhm.
influence that's sort of appearing? And as you've already had college experience, what are other promising majors in the STEM field?
The tech world is changing quite literally as we speak, faster than ever before. And if you want to go into engineering, you have to go in with the expectation that I have to prepare myself now more than ever to be adaptable and able to learn new skills as needed. You will find that academics typically lag 5 to 10 years behind. My sister's in college and they don't let her use ChatGPT or Cursor or Copilot or any of that. And I think it's kind of absurd because that's the future. There's no good reason that you shouldn't use those tools. Um, but I would look at it in the sense of what major equips you to learn the skills necessary such that you can adapt as you go. For some, that means computer science is not so much more of a viable option because you feel like there is not a lot of learning opportunity there. Some say that, or I guess I'll share my personal opinion, which is we're no longer in the world of everybody needing to be a specialist. Rather, there's power in being a generalist because AI is your specialist. So if you know how to develop a full stack application, but you necessarily don't know all the moving parts to it, that is more beneficial than being really good at, writing Python backend, um, you know, for data visualization using these two specific tools. I think we're beyond that. And some say that a CS major will no longer allow for that kind of learning, and they say, oh, I want to do human computer interaction, or I want to do informatics, because those majors allow for me to explore those intersections or explore how to be a generalist a little better. Again, the world is moving so fast, especially in the tech space, that you'll find everybody has a different opinion. So again, it comes back to what major empowers you to um, learn how to learn. And I'll give one personal story before I stop rambling, which is I was deciding between Georgia Tech CS and UW Undeclared Engineering when I was deciding which college to go to. And I went to UW Undeclared Engineering. And most people, when they would see me, the meme where people just slap their head. That was everybody around me. They're like, what? Like, why? Because many people say that Georgia Tech is like the public MIT. But the reason I made that decision was my mom read a Facebook post by a Georgia Tech parent on uh, there's only two best days of a Georgia Tech student, the day they get in and the day they graduate. And I was like, ouch. And having gone to Tesla STEM, where academics are really hard and rigorous, I was like, I cannot do another 4 years. I'd rather go to a school where, even though rankings wise, it might be a few spots down, I'm given space to explore my interests, passions, and hobbies, which give me a space to learn how to learn beyond what's being taught in the classroom.
Thank you for that response. I think it was really insightful on definitely choosing colleges based on what will make you more happy in the future. Um, I know there are some questions in the chat, but I'm just gonna, because we have 10 minutes left, I'm just gonna ask like one of our prepared questions. How did you personally find your purpose or calling? Was it a specific project or an experiment or a single moment that helped you
Mhm.
figure out what truly mattered to you?
I feel fortunate in the sense that I feel like I had a lot of resources that helped me find that passion and purpose through extracurriculars I did growing up. And I think that passion and purpose was inspired, or rather I was inspired by the adults around me, whether it was parents or robotics mentors, or people in my life who were involved who encouraged me. I think that was really useful for me, and more so for the parents, right? Like, eh, I don't think I would have been able to find a passion if I didn't have discussions with my parents. Sometimes we just be driving down the road and we just be talking about things going on in the world, and they would notice when I would light up when talking about something, uh, even when I didn't. And so this is something which I think, especially if you're trying to find your purpose or calling at a younger age, it's something that the people around you also play a big role in helping you discover it. It's not all on you. I mean, most of America doesn't have their life figured out until their mid 30s, realistically. It's a daunting task to get your life together as a high schooler. And it's not an expectation by any means. But for me personally, that purpose or calling, it came because of the activities I was doing, and then also the adults and mentors I had around me who inspired me and helped me actually figure out that this is what I really love to do. And in that moment, what I really loved to do was build things, do things with my hands, and just be a practical person to some extent. I was the kind of person who always like loved to like do rockets or elastic launch glider or robotics or hardware. Um, but now that I've graduated, now that I'm working, now that other parts of life are ahead of me, I would say my purpose and calling are again changing. They're shifting once again. So I wouldn't say there's a single moment that helped me figure it out because it's a ever changing answer because purpose and calling are different depending on the time of life you're in. But I think it's realizing that there is higher purpose than what is being set up right in front of me, that there will be more after this.
Another question was, what are some of the biggest mistakes young people make when they're planning their future, and how can it be avoided? For example, some students focus too much on prestige rather than fit or skills.
So the question was, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see, like I see high schoolers make?
Yeah.
I would say it's the two things which we kind of touched on, which is only focusing on academics and then not defining your own success and letting others define it for you. So having some sort of future vision of, and even if it's not a future vision, just knowing that there is more beyond this. There's more beyond the college hoodie I'm wearing on admissions day in my senior year. There's this, I know there's a lot of peer pressure and there also might be a lot of expectation that the hoodie I wear on college admissions day is the definition of who I am. And it's hard to escape that peer pressure. But the reality is, in that moment, it might feel like it, but even 3 months post high school graduation, no one really cares because everybody knows that life will take everybody in different directions. I mean, the person who goes to Stanford might be broke 15 years from now. Who knows? Right? Everybody realizes once you graduate that there's so much more ahead in life that no one cares what college you're going to as long as you feel satisfied with the college you're going to.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that insight into like really how colleges affect you. And another question that has been posted is some students know their path early, while others still explore their path even as sophomores. How can we find our direction? Because you talked about a lot, really how
Mm.
direction and passion matters. How do we find our direction?
So I'll have a clarifying question there. Are we talking about path career wise, or are we talking a path like passion wise or inspiration wise?
I think we're talking more like career-wise.
Career wise, I think career wise, it's always an open question. I suggest starting with the I don't want to list. For example, I knew that I do not want to be a doctor because the sight of blood makes me the most uneasy person in the world, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. And I think once you have a list of I don't want tos, then you have a list of I want tos because career is so broad. I'm doing a job right now which I didn't even know existed. I mean, I make YouTube content for a Microsoft YouTube channel, like, and I have a computer science degree. But I'm happy doing it. It's really fun and interesting. But if I was in high school and someone asked, "Is this what you want to do?" or "What do you want to do?" I wouldn't be able to give this as a option because I wouldn't even know it existed. So my suggestion is start with the I don't want tos, and then using the things that are not on your I don't want tos, you do those things. And it can be a breadth of things. It can be, you know, not everything you do in high school or even in college and beyond have to be 100% related to what you want to study, right? You can do computer science, but at the same time also be an excellent cricket player or be like a content creator or run a podcast. So I would say it's not a singular path in terms of defining what you want to do in the future.
Yeah, thanks for that. I just want to ask a quick follow-up on that question. Do you think that using things like clubs and like school subjects, do you think using those to sort of explore your sort of I want to list, do you think that's like a viable option?
Yeah, definitely. Like the I want to versus I don't want to list. I suggest the I don't want to because it's easier to say I don't want to than I want to, because I want to is a commitment, whereas committing to something you don't want to do is a lot easier. So clubs, extracurriculars, activities, a great way, and especially it, for eighth, ninth, 10th graders, what I would do in the first week is I would attend a bunch of random clubs and attend their information meetings and be like, is this interesting me? I went and like sit inside. I went and sat in like the HOSA meeting a few times. And after a few times, I was confident that this is a I don't want to. So definitely you're right in the sense that clubs are a great way to form either I want to or I don't want to list. It really depends on what's easier for you to make.
Yeah, and this might be we're nearing the end of the session, so this question in chat might be our last, and it's how do I balance academics, extracurriculars, and also having time for myself as a high schooler?
Mm. It's a interesting question because that balance is different for everybody, and that balance can mean different things. There's, of course, you have to balance those three things from a college admissions perspective, but then you also have to balance it from a personal perspective, and those two balances may not always be the same thing. So the way I like to think of it is, if you're able to find extracurriculars that you truly are excited about, extracurriculars and time for yourself are one and the same. Uh, For instance, when I would go do robotics, it didn't feel like work. It felt nourishing. It felt like restful play. So I would say finding, and I know it's hard and it won't always be the case, but eventually finding that intersection where extracurriculars also feel like time for yourself will really help. And then terms of academics, setting your own definition of success. I knew that for me, keeping a 4.0 would be the biggest headache of my life because it wasn't something that came so naturally to me. So I set a goal that my goal is to maintain a 3.9, not a 4.0. And even though that point one, you know, makes may seem like it makes such a big difference, at the end of the day, it helped me keep my sanity because everybody's striving, or not everybody, but many people due to peer pressure are striving for a 4.0, which is great, but not everybody might be cut out for it naturally speaking, according to your own uh, abilities. I had friends who would strive for a 4.0 and they'd be up until 2 or 3 a.m. studying, and they got a 4.0, but was it worth it? And so that's the question. So I would say the two pronged answer I have to this question is extracurriculars and time for yourself. If you can get them to mean the same thing, I think that's great. And then in terms of academics, if you're able to define what is academic success to you, it'll help you balance that as well.
Thank you. And I know you talked about AI and the job market. Someone had a question, as someone who is looking to major in business, what would you say in regards to AI taking over business and being an impacted major? Is there something else they should look for instead?
The thing that AI is doing, from what I've seen, is it's employers and companies are expecting that using AI, you will be a lot more efficient of a person. I don't think it necessarily means that jobs will be removed, but just that the world will continue to move faster. Companies will develop faster, products will be released faster, everything will happen faster. but I don't think it necessarily means that there will be less people doing it. So I was at a conference recently in Raleigh, and we had students from like NC State, and they were asking me, what are companies looking for in interviews? And I said, it's it's assumed that you know what you're talking about, but what they will want to know is how are you using these new technologies to empower yourself to be more effective and efficient. So that's my personal take on it. Again, because it's such a new space, you will find many different opinions and thoughts on this matter. And my suggestion would be to maybe even talk to somebody who is specifically in business. Um, with that background, they might be able to give you a better answer.
Thank you. I know we have run out of time, but we have posted a WhatsApp link for everyone to join our group. Please feel free to join it, and we will post responses from the unanswered questions in chat on the WhatsApp group. Um, Thank you, Ayan. I have a few like takeaways from today's session. The first being that college is not like the end. It's a means to an end, and it helps you build a successful life. And that high school is a good time to explore and find our passion and develop great habits for the future. The third one being life skills come from a lot of life skills come from extracurriculars, and it's important to pick some extracurriculars that we are passionate about so we are motivated to continue it. Thank you for um, participating in our session. Off to you, Ritesh.
Yeah, once again, thank you, Ayan. And if for everybody else, if you are interested in attending future sessions, you can join our WhatsApp group. You can visit our website, which is peer-up.org. If you want to register, you can see our next speakers as well. And yeah, again, just a shout out to Ian for really being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is something that is one of my passions and I get fulfillment out of it. So thank you for giving me an outlook and a space to pursue one of my passions.